Hey guys, MrPokke here. So this is going to be our bonus episode where I'm going to be showcasing you guys Ashveil on all the 0 cycles alongside with pretty much the strongest unit in the entirety of HSR. Face out, right? So for this particular quadra, or like technically we have like 6 different 0 cycles to showcase. We'll be splitting the first portion, which is gonna be majority of the videos, for E2 face out showcase. Right, we're gonna be running with E2 face out, and everything else is just gonna be running with a E0 Ashveil. So this is more so for players who are thinking about the vertical investments for a face out team, should be putting for him, and etc. etc. Right? Then after that portion, we are also gonna take a look at some of the couple of variations. For example, a E2 Ashveil Hypercarry going against a couple of 0 cycles as well. So the builds and everything will be showcasing in the videos. So without further ado, let's get into today's content. Okay, this is gonna be our first 0 cycle, and frankly speaking, I took an insane amount of retries for this 0 cycle because SparxiCon is pretty much one of the most annoying bosses to deal with for Ashveil because of the prime field as well as sub-field targeting for the bait not being synergistic with one another, right? But despite that, I finally got the proper speed tuning and rotations down. I'll showcase you guys this particular run where I failed at 1%, and then subsequently I'll show you guys what happens after you actually hit the actual run itself. So for the very first part of the run over here, this is gonna be where you have to choose your targets with Ashveil and face out first before deciding if you can lock in to save a face out ultimate. So the priority for us to basically take no hits, right? In the very first wave, if you were to take any of the hits from either the peacock or the bird, you are going to most likely die by the time SparxiCon comes around, because this is going to be a sustainless run, right? So ideally, before you even take a hit from the bird over here, you are going to clear the entire wave while also saving 12 stacks of face out's ultimate. So this is an extremely high bar to even maintain. Pretty much, I would say not too much of a possibility if you're going to be running an E0 face out. But the cost over here is going to be, if I remember correctly, E2 S1 face out, E0 S1 Ashveil, E1 S1 Bubbin, as well as a E1 S1 Tribute, right? So that is going to be done. It's going to hit us a little bit, right? Get us a little bit of the charge. Everything is going to be as per usual. So the more we get hit, because the bird, right, it always hits the rightmost target, just like the knights from Amphorius, your Bubbin will definitely be able to get ultimate immediately. No saving, immediately cast it, and we're just gonna go, right? If you wanted to greed, a little bit, you could potentially let the bird hit either face out or Bubbin to get a little bit more additional charge for Ashveil and Fail itself. But you will come to see why this is actually not ideal, because you actually want to time your elation skill at the exact right amount of AV for the phase 2, right? So you understand exactly what I'm talking about a little bit over here, but for now, just trust me on the process. Okay, so the very first step is you want to target the bird, but before you cast off your Ashveil ultimate, you want to immediately let go of a face out ultimate right now, because you want to use the Ashveil out on the peacock instead, right? So your face out is gonna go in. And the reason why I activated my face out ultimate before face out's turn is because I want to control where face out's follow-up attack is actually going to be going, which is going to be determined by Ashveil's ultimate, which is going to be on the bird, right? So the very first hit, 1.6 million, absolutely insane. Then now that it is going to be face out's turn, her follow-up attack frequency is going to be regenerated. So now the ultimate goes onto the bird. He's going to do the enhanced follow-up attack for 3 times. Face out will definitely hit the bird to reduce our RNG over here, right? Then Trippy is going to do the follow-up attack. Face out, rather Ashveil goes in, dispels the state from the little goons. So from this point, because our face out landed the follow-up attack on the peacock, we can actually cast our skill, and this will definitely get us a kill. So this is gonna get this. Very nice. And the follow-up attack kills the other minion over there. Now this is also where one of the biggest factor of RNG is gonna come in. If your face out does not kill that minion, the little bit of the goon, then Ashveil will actually miss his mark, or like the bait target, on the wrong person, right? So because we actually hit that, then this allows my Ashveil to use his remaining bait on the last minion, which means that the very last hit with Trippy's basic attack, it will allow us to dispatch of the bird right here without taking any hit whatsoever. And this is also where I would say that the aha instance here, the action value, is actually very important, because you exactly want this to be around this caliber, because you will see that when SparxiCon transforms later on, you want this aha to give you a bit of a break to get yourself the Ashveil ultimate to transition for phase 2, right? For now, you might not understand, but you'll just see what I mean over here. Trippy goes for a follow-up. And this is also a little bit more of an RNG. You want to save your Tribute ultimate for the next wave, because a single Tribute ultimate actually constitutes roughly 10% of SparxiCon's total HP, which is going to be a substantial amount, right? So the time is extremely strict. So getting into the second phase, we're gonna activate our Tribute ultimate immediately, giving us a refresh for busy as Tribute, right? And now our Facial is always gonna aim the minion instead of SparxiCon. You always want to aim the bait target, and this is always by default by the most left field, right? So you're always gonna aim this just to get us a little bit more energy for Ashveil and a little bit more charge. Tribute is gonna follow up, and then we are going to be at 48%. We're just going to activate ultimate immediately, and you can see that this entire rotation, it basically allows us to completely skip SparxiCon's entire gimmick. A little bit reminiscent of like back in Aventurine, you can almost skip out Aventurine's entire gimmick of the dices, where you actually do not need to put in your main DPSs in SparxiCon's domain, because you can pretty much just one-shot this and jump immediately into phase 2, right? So this is again, we're done with our E2 Facial, E0 Ashveil, E1 E1, right? So that's going to be the cost environment. We're going to get hit over here on Facial. So for this particular portion, instead of choosing to select your DPS to enter in the field, you want SparxiCon to select Tribute, because Tribute is the only unit on our team that actually has a substantial amount of health, 6.8k. So we are gonna take all the hits from the minions, and we're still gonna be okay. All right, so this is gonna go, and then we're gonna get all of the buffs. It's fine. Okay, so this is the particular reason why you want to save your AHA's action value for this portion. You can see that it is 35 AV to 40 AV from the next 2 minions. So you want to let Tribute take one more hit, and then right after the AHA instance, you will activate your Ashveil ultimate to transition us to phase 2, because if you do not do this, you are going to not have enough action value to squeeze out an extra turn with Robin, right? So that's the reason why you precisely need the AHA instance to activate right here. Not so much to deal damage, but just to act as like a breather, so that my Tribute doesn't take too many hits. Because if Tribute gets hit from this, she is most likely going to die, right? So we're just gonna get ourselves the additional hits, the energy. You can see that this is gonna be already 2% of his max HP. Facial is gonna go in. All right, chilling. So you ideally want this to be roughly 8 to 9% to guarantee us into wave 2, right? If you do not have enough damage over here, then it is what it is. The moment we take a hit, you can see my Tribute is going to be 1.4k HP. We are going to let AHA go, and this is the benchmark which will prevent the other 2 minions from hitting Tribute, which means that she won't take too much damage, right? So at this particular instance for AHA, then you activate Ashveil's ultimate to latch onto the leftmost target, which will then bring us into phase 2, right? So the enhanced follow-up attack is going to go in just nice on the dot, 437k, getting us to phase 2, and this is going to transition our SparxiCon. So at this particular point, you want to just deal as much damage as humanly possible, because SparxiCon, she has not activated the live stream mode, right? The privacy protection, so you can deal the maximum damage right now, which is going to be a very similar technique you're going to be seeing in Anomaly Arbitration King Pong Pong, where you want to deal as much damage as possible before they get the damage mitigation, right? So now Ashveil is going to go in, and you can see we're going to be dealing a substantial amount of follow-up attacks, which generates my Facial an insane amount of charge for our next ultimate, right? So the one that is going to be done with an E2 Facial. Pop this back in for the ultimate. Activate our Tribute ultimate again. I unfortunately missed out on that last stack to get us another ultimate, but it's going to be okay, because you can see over here, barely just enough, right? The HP is super high. Everyone, their mounts are going to be at rate HP. So for this option, you also choose to bypass the mechanic from SparxiCon by selecting Robin, right? So at no point will you ever use your main DPS on SparxiCon, because we are just going to brute force all the way through and get us a 0 cycle without wasting a tremendous amount of time on the subfield, right? So now Robin is gonna be able to be here, and you can see our action value perfectly aligns by having the 2 little summons after our Ashveil as well as Facial. And yes, for this particular speed setup, you do need a little bit more speed subsets for both Ashveil and Facial, so that they can outspeed these 2 goons, which is only made possible because we start our initial phase 1 running the AHA instance, right? The AHA instance actually gave us the break to get us outspeeding these 2 goons. Otherwise, if we did not wait for the AHA instance, then these 2 are going to be too slow, right? So for this point, Robin is just going to go for the base hit. It doesn't matter who you hit, because we're just going to be saving this and brute forcing all of our damage on the SparxiCon herself, right? So she's going to hit Babin, it's fine. So everyone, the mounts are going to be at rate HP. Yep, so you have absolutely no room to get hit whatsoever. So even if you get hit by the Peacock at the very start, you are most likely going to die, unless you want to get a little bit more HP subsets on Tribute, but it is what it is. So Ashveil is going to come back in. We are just going to deal as much damage as possible and generate all of our sets of Facial right before Babin ultimate, right? Then Facial is going to cast our Okay, for this particular option, you do not want to use a skill because you want to save at least 1 skill point for Ashveil to cast his skill first. Yeah, so you want to save that 1 skill point for Ashveil himself. So you are just going to be going for the basic attack. Right, so you're just going to go for the basic attack, get out the 2 skill point, and immediately after the basic attack, our Robin is going to activate the ultimate, right? So this comes back in, flies up. We don't even need to wait for the rest band. It's fine because we don't need to care about the stuff at all. So Trippy is going to go for the follow-up attack, right? Fatal is going to go in, and then Azure is going to apply his skill. So for this particular moment, you want to activate your skill, which will then trigger Ashveil's ultimate. But before you activate Ashveil's ultimate, ideally you want to activate your Facial ultimate first so that you don't waste any stacks, right? Because Ashveil's ultimate actually gives us a tremendous amount of stacks for Facial's Flying Aureus, which is going to be another ultimate. So this is going to come down to 794k. Trippy is going to follow up attack. We are going to follow up attack again. And then now Ashveil is going to come in with his ultimate. You can see we are already at 5.5 stacks. So the moment Ashveil goes in, we are going to be at 7 stacks. So there would have been a little bit of a overflow, right? So we don't really want to overflow. This flies back in. 9 stacks. Trippy activates the ultimate, which will refresh our busy as Trippy for Facial to get another stack right here. Then Facial is going to activate the ultimate again. So you can see that this entire rotation is extremely smooth, right? It is super smooth. So we're at 21% HP. We're going to fly all in for our damage. And unfortunately, this is going to give us the follow-up attack. We get this back in. Trippy lands the follow-up. Very nice. This is going to be 5 stacks. Unfortunately, we missed out by half a stack. Yep, so that is the unfortunate situation. So ideally, by this Trippy basic, you actually get the kill. But just by that half a stack, you couldn't get the ultimate from Facial. So if you really dealt enough damage with Trippy basic, you would have cleared SparxiCon 0 cycle running our E0 Ashveil, right? So that I just want to show you guys the rotation for this. Now that the actual fill is going to be done, I'll just show you guys the last portion where I actually got the 0 cycle right here. So we'll just start from this portion, which is around the time where we get into phase 2. So this is the exact same you guys remember from just now, right? Azure is going to cast the ultimate. This is going to be just nice. We waited for our hard instance, and then we're going to jump into phase 2 right here. So everything here is going to be the exact same as the previous example. So, yep, just go with it, all right? We're just going to continue on with follow-up attacks. All right, get us a skill right here, which will give us a lot more stacks for our ultimate. All right, we are going to regenerate our Trippy. And then this is going to give us 1 more stack of Facial to just deal as much damage as humanly possible. Slamming this back in right before SparxiCon is going to transform, right? So just dealing damage. Okay, then now SparxiCon is going to transform. Now, one thing you notice over here is that Robin actually did not save as much HP. Because you see, my Facial didn't take as much damage, right? So this is going to be a portion where after we still need to select Robin, right? There's no choice. We have to select Robin. So once we select Robin, she is going to activate the global passive over here because the bounce was not too ideal, right? So we don't really have a choice. We just have to select Bobbin. Yep, we're going to select Bobbin. So after we take this hit, we will not die and proc the ultimate from SparxiCon because of global passive. But if you don't want to get through all of the RNG, then global passive is going to be save you quite a bit over here. You are just going to cast a basic where you're just going to wait, all right? So we're just going to be going for the basic with Bobbin right here. And then immediately cast our ultimate in this portion because unfortunately these 2 goons did not get the same AV tuning as just now. So we have to immediately slam this in right here so that we do not go buff flip explode. Trippy is gonna activate our basic, right? Just do all of our skills and everything. And then Ashveil is gonna slam this back down. Okay. And then this is going to give us a rest pen. Facial is going to go in. And then from here point, it's going to be almost the exact same. Activate the ultimate, which will then give us the Ashveil ultimate. So we are going to be getting 1 more stack of Facial. This gives us the Ashveil ultimate. And then Trippy is going to be also be casting a follow-up attack, which will also give us the Trippy ultimate. Okay, very good amounts of damage. Trippy ultimate goes in, and then we are going to activate our Trippy ultimate, which will be just nice enough for us to cast our Facial ultimate again. So the damage distribution is almost the exact same. It's just this time we dealt a little bit more. Then Facial's ultimate right here, you can see it is going to be 17% instead of, I believe, 20% just now, which is going to be a little bit more ideal. So we're just going to go in. And I was praying to God that this does not hit 1%. I was really just praying. And then this slams back down for just nice on the dot. Ashveil goes in with the Trippy follow-up attack, getting us the 1% of for the Zero Cycle, right? So that is pretty much it for our, this is the one that I took like the insane amount of retries just because the RNG required was going to be so high. But for every other Zero Cycle, it was a lot more straightforward. But that is pretty much it for our very first Zero Cycle featuring E2 face out with Ezo Ashveil, right? Okay. Now for all of our subsequent Zero Cycles, frankly speaking, I just wanted to get it relatable by using our sustain run, which is going to be our E2 DHPD. And ironically, this is going to be the exact same setup as my main account here as well. So yeah, pretty chill, pretty easy. I didn't really, because every single one of the Zero Cycles after the SparxiCon, I did it on my first try. Right, so all this was done on our very first try, just getting us the DHPD E2 for the insane amount of rob attacks that we're going to be getting, right? Then Bobby is going to activate ultimate immediately, giving us the team-wide action very advanced. We can actually try to save us a little bit more of a stacks as well as energy, because we do have a sustain for DHPD, which means that we don't really need to rush for time. So we can try to make use of our action value as much as possible, right? So Phase Out is going to go in, dealing all of our damage, getting us the stacks on the Manta Ray, which is going to be 3 out of 5. So Ashveil flies back down with his ultimate, which is once again going to do substantial damage, right? 476k. Alright, very nice. Instantly getting us the Manta Ray kill, so we can actually start saving up for it next week, right? So from this portion on, I wanted to see if it was possible to save up my face out double ultimates for Lygus himself. But you can see towards the end, we probably were missing out quite a decent amount of damage, because by face out turn, he was definitely gonna die, right? So I was just getting my energy for Ashveil, giving us the energy for DHPT. Alright. Yep, we're gonna go for the basic. So from this point out, I know that my skill is definitely not gonna kill. So I was thinking, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna use a face out basic to generate more skill points, and then we'll let go of one ultimate to get rid of the final stack here, and this will then bring us into phase 2, right? And if you guys have seen my face out Zero Cycle on the main channel, we already did it before. Instead of Ash, I believe we used Trippy, if I'm not mistaken. So this is honestly a pretty straightforward Zero Cycle, especially if you do have a E2 face out, right? So from this point out, you can see at this Lygus action, if you do not clear both of his summons, he's gonna bring up action very advanced for one of the summons, and you don't really want that to happen, because you want to get hit to generate us a little bit more energy for Ashveil, DHPT, and Robin, right? So I'm gonna activate Ashveil's ultimate here, where you can see the multi-target function for the mark and the bait. Alright, and phase out actually gets us the kill, so we actually clear out both of these coons without waiting for Lygus' summon, which means that when he actually casts the AoE, we'll get a little bit more energy for our entire team right here, right? Phase out is gonna just do the ultimate, just to get us no stack wastage. Alright, raw damage going in. Alright, we're just gonna go all in, right? We're just gonna go all in, just slam everything back down. And then at this point, Lygus is just gonna be giving us the AoE, right, which is a decent amount of energy, mainly just for Ashveil, right, mainly just for Ashveil. So this is going to cast our skill. DHPD is always going to be doing our basic. Okay, so I guess I went for the skill here just to give us a little bit more energy, but if I were to rebind, I will just go for the basic for more energy as well as more sex for face out, right? So that's going to be that, right? Face out is going to go in. So for this particular instance, I was thinking, can I save the break from Lygus? And unfortunately, the dragon actually broke, bro. So I couldn't get a free ultimate from Lygus before the summons happens. So a little bit unfortunate right there, right? So now that Lygus is going to transform, our face out is going to go in. So ideally for this Zero Cycle, as long as Lygus gives your face out the ultimate, which is going to be 12 sets of Flying Aureas, you are going to be pretty much guaranteed this for free, especially if you have this level of cost investment, right? But unfortunately, you can see over here, my Lygus actually does not give my face out the ultimate. So it actually went on to Robin as well as DHP, which is like literally the worst two options that could have happened. But I was just thinking, okay, this very first try, we're probably not going to do it. But since it was my first try, I was just thinking, okay, you know what? I'll just give it my best and see how far we're going to be able to get it. But surprisingly, we actually get it anyways. So you can just see our raw damage coming out from this entire team, even though we did not get the ideal setup for face out as well as Ashveil, right? So we're just gonna be brute forcing everything. We are not even gonna make use of Ashveil's ultimate to be used on the goons at this point. We are just gonna slam all of our damage onto Lygus directly without a concern for any of the summons, right? Robin's gonna go in. We are gonna let him take the quantum buff, doesn't really matter. And then once face out flies back in, we'll activate our Bobbin for the instant additional ultimate. And our team-wide action very advanced. DHPT at this point, I'm going to cast my basic, right, just to get a little bit more energy. Dragon goes in. Ashveil gets the ultimate. Very, very nice. So activate the ultimate onto Lygus. 33% HP remaining. Slams this back down for a very, very nice chunk of a 668,000. 28% HP. Cast our skill chest. Generate as much energy as possible. So from this point on, because of my Face Out getting an insane amount of follow-up attacks, we actually get the ultimate from DHPD as well. Right? So we want to maximize all of our energy usage as well as our stacks. So now Face Out is going to slam this back down. I wanted to try to get my dragon in action right here, but you can see it was going to be a little bit of an overkill. So Ashveil comes back in, our dragon activates, which will give us the extra turn, which then generates the additional stack for Face Out, and then Face Out is going to be able to get a last stack, and then 3% HP. At this point, it's going to be super, super overkill, so it slams back down, strongest DPS. Oh my god. Oh my god. Insane. Okay, no brainer from stream, but this is pretty much gonna be our E2 Face Out 0 cycle on Lygus against with our E0 Ashveil, right? E0 S1 Ashveil. So this is gonna be our cost investments. Right, blah, 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 blah. Everything is going to be exact same, right? Almost 100% crit rate, right? This is going to be our E0 S1, right? E2 DHPT, etc. Okay, for our Bobbin over here, yep, very, very nice, right? Okay, now on to the next Zero cycle, and this is going to be done with the upcoming MOC of Nikador. I would say that this is actually done with, or rather, it has the ability to be done at a much easier pace. You don't really need this level of cost. By this one, I kind of just want to see how this team is going to be performing because, you know, Face Out Showcase. So this will be the exact same thing that I use on Lygus with E2 DHPT, E2 Bobbin, E0 Face Out, sorry, E0 Ashveil as well as the E2 Face Out, right? If you wanted to do this clear as a sustainless, it is honestly very, very doable as well, right? So we are just gonna do this, once again, it is our very first try, no research whatsoever, because for this particular minion, the AHA TV, it is a 1 in 3 chance of you getting the action value delay, right? The reverberation delay, which means that if you do get that, you can pretty easily run this sustainless. For example, if you want to run an RMC to get even more delay on Nikador, I think it is going to be very, very doable as well. But since this was my very first shot, I just want to see how this was going to be going, right? So we're going to be taking all of the hits. Alright, Bobbin is going to activate ultimate immediately because you can see my Ashveil and Face Out, they are at 39 and 42 AV, which is like very, very far away. So there's no need to wait for that long. Bobbin gives us the action very advanced. So from this point onwards, I'm just going to be trying to deal as much damage as possible. Very, very standard stuff. DHPD activates the ultimate. This goes in. Ashveil gets the follow-up on the mark. Alright, gets us all of the energy. So for this particular portion, I actually want to get as much energy regeneration on Ashveil as possible. So I'm going to activate this ultimate, giving us the break onto the main guy, which is actually going to lead to a little bit of an excess text for Face Out. You can see my Face Out did not make use of the Flying Aureus that much. So we're going to slam this back in. All in for the War Armor guy. And then Ashveil is going to keep letting go of his follow-up attacks for additional damage and follow-up attack stacks. Very, very nice. So this skill is definitely going to kill the main guy, which will dispatch the 2 other goons. Also, the follow-up attack landing on the TV. So now the only target left is going to be the wolf, right? So we can just save all of our damage. It's going to be very, very chill. DHPT's Dragon goes in. He's going to give us an AoE, which is even more energy, which is substantial. Right, continue on with our skill. DHPT is just going to go for our Terror Grip, right? Don't really have to worry about it that much. And then for this point, Face Out is just going to be able to cast off our ultimate to deal as much damage as possible, right? So we're just thinking if, yep, gets this back in. Alright, gets this Dragon. Alright, gets this follow-up attack, which is a little bit wasteful. Alright, it's a little bit wasteful. But at this point, I was basically waiting for my Bobbin buff to expire so that I can cast my Bobbin ultimate immediately against Nikador for 100% action very advanced on the second wave, right? So I'm just going to be going for the basic. I was trying to measure out my damage, holding this a little bit. Okay, yep, I was doing this once because I don't really want to fuck up. So the moment my Robin goes in, I will let go of my Face Out, and hopefully this Face Out was enough damage to just kill and bring us to wave 2, right? If it was not enough, I will just activate my Ashveil ultimate just in case, right? So this goes back in, and unfortunately, it was enough for our Dragon, right? Fortunately, it was enough for our Dragon to kill. So we actually saved all of our ultimates into Nikador, which was very, very nice. So now Bobbin will cast the ultimate immediately. 100% AV advanced, so you can see Nikador is going to be a 64 AV, super, super nice. We'll first activate our DHPD ultimate so that we can get our Dragon. And then we are going to apply our Ashveil ultimate so that we can get our energy regeneration going on. Okay, very, very good. And then the Dragon is going to go back down. Alright. Gets us another Ashveil hit. So from this point on, I don't want Face Out to be the one breaking because this is going to be 1 out of 7. It's going to be a little bit wasteful. So I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm just going to let go of a skill so that my Ashveil can get a break, right? Just to give us a little bit more energy for Ashveil, right? So at this point, my facial is going to be a little bit overkill on stats, but it's going to be fine. We'll let go of everything right here. Slams this in for 1.28. This gives us a damage over here, gives us a little bit more follow-up attacks, a lot of follow-up attacks. Then we're just going to continue on for skill. And we'll ideally try to just deal so much damage that we skip out Nikador's phase 1 in its entirety right here, right? So phase shall continue on with our follow-up attack, but I don't think we actually do enough damage right here, so we actually have to wait for the rest of his spears to come out to get us into phase 2, right? So we'll just do as much as we can. Alright, very nice, very nice, right? All of the damage going in, 28% left. DHPD, we're just gonna continue on with our ultimate. Alright, we'll go face out first. Alright, just a little bit more, 15%, 12%. I think we would have barely just made it if we didn't waste our face out stacks at the very start. So unfortunately, this is gonna be down. Oh, wait, it might be enough. Oh, wait, never mind. It's actually exactly on the dot enough, so that's gonna be fantastic. So Nikador now is just gonna go into phase 2, so he's completely skipped phase 1, and then he's gonna cast his summons. Alright, so from this point onwards, you want to basically make use of your Ashveil ultimate to get rid of all of the spears as fast as possible, because every single one of Nikador's spear is 12.5% of bro's max HP, right? This was his max HP, so you don't really want to waste the amount of damage. So we're just gonna let go of our Bubbin. Alright, we can generate a little bit more action over here, right? Getting us the war armor stack breaking. Okay. So I was just saving for my face out's turn to begin, then I'll activate my Bubbin ultimate, right? So this actually breaks the war armor. Face out is gonna slam back down for a little bit more damage. And then the moment my Bubbin casts the ultimate, we can start slamming in our face out, right? Our first let go of face out. So this was basically me thinking to myself, okay, I'll limit test the damage, right? Because if I were to use my ultimate face out on the spear, it is gonna be a very big overkill. And this was my very first try. So I was thinking to myself, okay, spear or guy, but I was thinking, okay, you know what? I'll just slam in for the guy just to see how much damage I'll be dealing. So it's gonna be 82%. Down to 68%, so roughly 14% max HP, which was going to be equivalent to 1 spear, right? So that was going to be very good. So from this point on, you are going to let go of your Ashveil's ultimate onto the Ashveil spear, right? So from this point, you can then deal substantial damage by letting go of all the spears, because it can break multiple times. All right, very nice. Very good, right? So from this point, you want to just try to break as many of the spears as possible so that you can just break 12.5% of his max HP every single time, right? So we're just gonna hit the bait to break off face out spear as well. Alright, follow-up attack goes in. Okay, then my face out is gonna be just slamming back down again. Alright. And then this ultimate, I wanted to wait for this spear to break, then we cast our ultimate on the Nikador. At this point, you don't really need to worry about the last spear anymore, because as per usual, just our ultimate did 14% of his max HP. So this is going to be one ultimate, one follow-up attack, one more ultimate, and then this is going to be getting us the 0 cycle E2 face out against Nikador, right? So it is the exact same setup as I've used for my Lygus. No change in investment whatsoever, so that is going to be pretty much it. Now, this is going to be our very last 0 cycle against Kafka. Exact same setup once again. E2 S1 face out, E0 S1 Ashveil, E2 Bubbin, as well as E2 DHPD. And this was done with a sustain. So once again, if you're going to be going for a sustainless run, you are probably going to be able to save on the decent amount of cost. But I would say for the Kafka boss, it is going to be the more difficult one, because she does have the mind control. And if you're going to be going for sustainless, you don't really have a way to cleanse yourself from Kafka. Alright, the mind control. It is going to be a huge DPS loss. So for this particular portion, DHPT with the cleanse on command, it is going to be very nice for us to get as much value as possible from the mind control, right? So for the very first phase, there's not too much to talk about. You're just going to be dealing as much damage as possible. Alright, just slamming this back down, trying to get rid of this guy. Okay, so by the way, for the Azure Wind's Elite, you can check out our Anomaly Arbitration video. The entire gimmick for Azure Wind is basically after his first action, so his next action, he's gonna start charging up into a enhanced state, right? So you want to hit him 7 times for him to break through from the enhanced state so they can deal more damage, right? So unfortunately for us, we're not really gonna wait that much, so we are just gonna instantly slam this back down to Ashveil win. But ideally, you actually want to kill the chicken first. So that if you kill the chicken and you let him take into enhanced mode, because we're running a full-up attack team, you can easily break out Ashveil win's enhanced mode very, very fast, right? So from this point, it doesn't really matter as much, right? We're gonna do a very similar thing in which we want to save our Babin's ultimate immediately for wave 2, right? The exact same thing that we did for Nikador that we also want to do over here as well, right? So you can see over here, we're dealing a good amount of damage. Hopefully we do not overkill. This goes in, gets us an elation hit. Alright, Babin is gonna get us our ultimate back in again, so we're just gonna be saving this for the next phase, right? Unfortunately, I don't think I have enough damage from Ashveil by himself, so we might have to let go of a facial ultimate, right? So this is gonna cast this. We are gonna be able to get ourselves a little bit more of a contemplation. Gets this thing. Okay. So we are gonna let go of a facial ultimate. Now the reason why you don't want to let go of an Ashveil ultimate is because Ashveil's ultimate actually gives us a lot of stacks as well, right? So this is just gonna come in very, very nicely, and then we'll Babin out immediately. Then we'll use our Ashveil ultimate to target the horses first, right? We'll use this to deal with the horse first because Kafka does have 40% lightning rest, which is very, very annoying. So once we have targeted the horse, we can then proceed on to deal with the rest of our damage. Alright, I'm just gonna sip of water. Very nice. DHPT is gonna continue doing our DHPT things. Giving all of our follow-up attacks, you can see we are already back down to 12 stacks of facial, right? So that's how much stacks we're gonna be able to get from our full Ashveil rotation, which is very, very nice. Facial is going to come back down 1.5 million, and we are pretty much going to be able to deal with the horse right here the moment this goes in. Alright? Okay, by the way, for this particular instance, if you wanted to, you could have saved up your DHPT ultimate so that you can immediately cleanse yourself from Kafka. But if Kafka chooses to mind control DHPT, then you can't really do it anymore, right? So I just went for the Gamba, right? So she aimed for Ashveil, which is fine, because I'm just going to use my DHPT skill to cleanse Ashveil immediately. Rather, I didn't do it. Okay, because I have the Enhanced Dragon at the end, right? So this Enhanced Dragon will just cleanse us anyways. So we got a little bit more energy regeneration as well as stacks from our DHPT base attack, right? Just to be a little bit more efficient on skill. So this facial ultimate goes in, kills the other Uma. Now we can just focus all of our damage onto Kafka, and we already do not have the mind control. So from this point on, it's going to be very, very straightforward, right? So it's just going to be a tremendous amount of single target damage, which is perfect for all of our Han DPS, right? So Babin at this point, because we do get the additional turn, we're just going to go for our basic. We're going to let all of them get their extra turn, just to get as much value as possible. This is going to be AoE. Ashveil casts a skill, right? DHPT casts the basic just for as much stacks as possible. And then Facial is going to cast a skill as well. And then Babin is going to cast an ultimate, which means we're going to just deal all of our damage at the very, very last portion, right? Get all of our buffs. Okay, Babin out. Then the moment Babin out, we are just going to activate our DHPT ultimate. And then we can let go of our Facial as well, just to get as many stacks of it. This is to really just showcase how many stacks you can actually obtain running this particular setup on a pure single target scenario. Ashveil is going to cast a skill to get our ultimate. Okay, we'll activate our facial out first because, like I mentioned, Ashveil ultimate gives us an insane amount of stacks. But you can see over here, we already deal way too much damage. So by the time Ashveil casts his ultimate, we can't even see facial out because she's pretty much gonna die here, right? So that is pretty much it for our last Zero Cycle showcase with our E2 S1 facial. Absolutely, I love facial. Right? So that's pretty much gonna be the Zero Cycle. Now for the next two Zero Cycles, it is gonna be one where I'm gonna be showcasing you guys Hypercarry Ashveil without facial. Alright, now we're gonna move on into the Hypercarry Ashveil. This is gonna be E2 S1 Ashveil, E1 S1 Sunday for the insane defense down our reduction stacking. Our Tribi E1 S1 as well as our DHPP at E2 S1, right? Then of course it's gonna be the exact same for our second Zero Cycle against Nikador, just to kind of see how he plays differently compared to a follow-up at DPS, which is gonna be with facial, right? So our base for this particular portion is gonna be a little bit more lenient because we are actually using a sustained DHPT, so it's gonna be easier for our action value as compared to a sustainless run, right? So now Ashveil is just gonna continuously do all of our follow-up damage. Very nice. Just to take a look at how much bros damage actually gonna be doing. Dragon goes back in, activates the Peacock's Cutter vessel state. He's gonna give us more energy because we don't really face that big of a sustain problem. So from this point onwards, we are gonna activate our... Okay, by the way, this was a slight misplay. I should be waiting for my Sunday's buff first, for the crit rate buff as well as the damage buff, before activating this ultimate. So a slight misplay over here, but it's gonna be okay because I didn't change my gears, so we are still at 94% crit rate. So it's like super giga over crit, so it is what it is. 931k before Sunday's buffs, which is very nice. So now we're gonna get our Sunday ultimate right now. Or rather, we did not get our Sunday ultimate because I guess I was greeding for Sunday's ultimate in the next wave. So I was believing that I dealt enough damage without Sunday's ultimate. I think that was the reason why I did not cast that. Tribi is gonna go in with the ultimate. This is gonna cast a follow-up attack, giving us the kill with 421k. Gives us the very last hit, and now all of our damage is gonna be directing towards the chicken. We can see it is gonna be a substantial amount full of damage. We are now gonna start charging our energy for our very last wave. Dragon is gonna go in, saving our damage even at this point so that I can get maximum energy on Ashveil. Alright, and then Sunday is gonna give us an additional action with the advance. So from this point onwards, I was hoping my skill could kill with the dragon, which it did. Fantastic. So now we are gonna be in this state. We will activate our damage as much as we can. So this flies back in, and now I finally get in my Sunday ultimate. So this is gonna be coming down to 30% of SparxiCon's max HP, which is very nice. Gets us the 300k follow-up, so this is already at 38%. After Sunday goes in, we are gonna be getting our tribute follow-up again for another follow-up attack damage, 418k, and then one last time, DHPD Dragon goes in for the maximum amount. So you can see my E2 Ashveil is almost completely brute forcing the very first half. Gets us a tribute follow-up to refresh all our energy, and she's really gonna be at 14% HP, which is around the same amount of damage as my Fei Xiao, because my Fei Xiao E2 actually left this at 13%, right? So because of this, we are just also gonna be choosing the option of skipping the phase entirely, choosing our tribute to retire going to the subfield, and we're just gonna completely brute force this by running DHPT. Alright, DHPT is gonna be on the main field. Always choose Tribi because our Sunday and Azure, they're going to be our damage dealers as well, right? So we're just going to get our res pen, and then we are just going to easily skip us into the next phase. Gets us the going in, right? We can activate our ultimate right here because our follow-up attack actually transitions cross phases, right? So our first ultimate goes in, this transforms, and then all our follow-up attack is going to go into the mob right here. 20% max HP, Tribi goes for follow-up attack. This comes back in again, and then we are just going to be dealing our skill again, just generating as much energy as possible. Follow-up attack goes in, not quite enough for Tribi's ultimate here, which it is what it is, but this was right before she transformed, so we actually made full use of our Ashveils out, so it's gonna be fine. So at this point, unfortunately, because we do not really have enough damage, I was thinking, okay, do I choose Ashveil? Yes, I did, so I just went for the Ashveil to just deal as much as I can against the subfield, right? So we can see how quickly Ashveil himself can actually dispatch the subfield. So she's gonna go for a little bit more skill. Dragon is gonna always go on the subfield, which is nice. Gets us a little bit more res pen. And then we're gonna be getting the energy right here. Not quite enough for the ultimate, but DHPD is definitely gonna be giving us for this instance, right? Get us a little bit more res pen. Get us a little bit more res pen. And then the dragon is gonna go into the subfield, which would give my Ashveil, oh my god, right? Ashveil subfield, we get the energy for our ultimate. Very nice. Cast this onto the main SparxiCon. This is going to be dealing tremendous amounts of damage, and yes, we easily break out from this field over here. Tribi is going to be going to follow-up attack. Aha Instant is going to activate, and all of our follow-up attack is going to be dealing absolutely insane amount of damage because she does have the 100% damage vulnerability, right? So now Sunday is going to essentially give us a little bit more of a skill up. And then we're just going to be able to cut our skill one more time, getting us a dragon, which would then net us the 0 cycle, right? After the dragon, that's pretty much going to be the 0 cycle. So that is going to be the damage capabilities of a E2 Ashveil Hypercarry setup, 0 cycling the MOC12 SparxiCon boss, right? So the cost investment you can see over here, this is going to be our E2 S1 Ashveil. So you can see my crit rate over here is actually at 97.1. So I didn't even change my gears for Ashveil despite using Sunday. So I was giga over critted, but it is what it is. Coming back into our E1 S1 Sunday, 134 speed, 147 DHPT with our E2S1 and A1S1 tribute, right? So that is gonna be that, and then one last Zero Cycle showcase, and that is gonna be up against Nikador. Alright, so this is gonna be our E2 Ashveil Nikador with once again the exact same team. And while this is playing, I guess I can answer some questions. First of which, for my E2 faceout, the reason why I did not run E2 faceout on 4-piece Eagle is because I didn't get the action value tuning required for this particular setup. Because what tends to happen is that I would hold my faceout ultimates quite frequently. So because of the times that even if I were to hold my ultimate even once, that would have been a 25% action value loss. So I just stuck to faceout running the 4-piece of Valerius so that we can get as much damage as possible. But if you want to really be like extremely meticulous and you want to speed tune every single ultimate without wasting so they can get more action value running 4-piece Eagle, then feel free to stick with 4-piece Eagle for faceout specifically, right? So just gonna be that for our previous faceout Zero Cycles. Anyways, back into Nikador. Since this is gonna be the exact same team again, we are running this with a sustain. So once again, if you want to do a more less cost Zero Cycle, feel free to try RMC, because RMC is actually really good for Nikador. So I can go ahead and experiment with that, right? So this is just purely gonna be from our raw damage. Sunday is gonna finally activate this. Trevi gets the follow-up attack, breaks the main target, and then Ashveil is just gonna get rid of the mob right there. Very easily dealing enough damage right here. All in for the wolf, then we're just gonna do the exact same thing, saving up all of our skill points, which unfortunately we just can't really save enough because we just deal way too much damage. So I'm just gonna cast my skill, and then Trevi is just pretty much gonna be letting me this go, right? Because I kind of want to save up my Aha Instance for the next wave. So boom, very nice. So Aha Instance activates this for Nikador. Alright, and then Dragon is gonna come in. I was just gonna wait for him to activate his spears so that I can let go of my Ashveil and instantly kill all spears at the same time, right? So you can see this is very satisfying. 93%, Ashveil aims Ashveil spear, and you can see a single ultimate kills every single spear. So that is gonna be immediately all 4 spears, which is gonna be basically 50% of Bro's max HP immediately. Very satisfying, and now we can just slam all of our damage against Nikador himself, because Ashveil's, at least at E2, deals enough damage to just deal with all of the spears in a single time, right? Shubi goes back in for the follow-up attack, gets a little bit more of Ashveil's own follow-up. 3 out of 7, this is gonna be 2 out of 7, 1 out of 7, then DHPT gets the break, 0 out of 7, 10% HP, and then Ashveil just gonna be getting us the kill, bringing us into phase 2 immediately, right? You can see my energy here for Ashveil is already almost full, so we're just gonna do the exact same thing all over again the moment Sunday gives me the action value advance, right? So the moment Sunday gives me the skill, we are gonna activate our skill onto the Goon, and then from this point out, we're just gonna cast our ultimate again, right? So we're just gonna cast our ultimate again, get this on the Goon, and this is gonna very easily once again dispatch all of the spears almost simultaneously at the same time. So 12.5, 12.5, 12.5, very nice. So instantly almost 50% of Bro's max HP, which is extremely satisfying. Now come back into our E2 DHPT. Should have waited for one more dragon. I wasted one of the dragons because you do get an extra dragon from there, but it's fine. Trevi goes back in for the follow-up, Ashveil comes back down, Dragon comes back down again, getting us the last break. Alright, Trevi is going to activate the ultimate, and then we are going to be dealing way more than enough damage to get out the Zero Cycle, which is going to be very straightforward. Alright, so a more difficult variation would definitely be doing Sustainless, so you can stick with RMC, can try Sparkle, try Bubbin, try Sunday, whatever, and that is pretty much going to be the clear running our Hypercarry E2 Ashveil, right? And I was just farming aura over here. The cost is going to be the exact same, so not too much to talk about over here, and with that, we are going to come to the end of our 6 different Zero Cycles for our Ashveil showcase. Generally speaking, I would say from what I've seen from Zero Cycles, his performance even at E0 as a sub-DPS is going to be very nice. E2 is definitely going to be an insane upgrade even for a Hypercarry or sub-DPS Ashveil, so you can kind of decide for yourselves that in the future, since version 4.2 is going to come in roughly 4 weeks, decide for yourselves if you want to try out a Hypercarry or sub-DPS Ashveil for either follow-up attack team, or you want to play him by himself, right? Because I think maybe in the future we're going to be getting more follow-up attack DPS, right? So with that, we have come to the end of today's content. Let me know what you guys think of the strongest DPS in the entire game. What of the day is gonna be the strongest. Join Discord, use code POKE for 10% off gamer subs. All the best. See you guys next time. Bye.